Welcome back to Cooking with Faigy, episode 2. Today we are going to continue with infusing the simanim into our food, and we are going to incorporate leek. Today's episode is a chickpea leek stew, and for that we will need 2 leeks diced, 4 stalks of celery chopped. We will need a half a cup of basmati rice, 2 cans of chickpeas rinsed and drained, 6 lemons for juicing, 3 lemons for peeling, a teaspoon of coriander, dried dill, dried mint, which, by the way, if you do not have, and it's very hard to find, I actually will just open up like a tea bag and empty it out, a mint tea bag, and use that. 1/4 teaspoon crushed red pepper, salt, black pepper, 1/3 cup of olive oil, and 4 cups of vegetable broth. So this recipe does require a few steps, so I'll do it in stages for you, and I'm gonna start with peeling and zesting the lemons. So the Aramaic word for leek is actually karti, which is similar to the Hebrew word of kares, which means to cut off. And on Rosh Hashanah, we're asking Hashem to cut us off from our enemies. You know, sometimes I think that might sound a little harsh, a little mean, cut us off from the bad guys. But what we learn in Chassidus is that galus is intentional. And the fact that we are here today in exile is here for a reason. And as soon as we recognize what that reason is for, and we work on that, we ask Hashem then to cut us off from our enemies. We no longer need them. Take a look at what's happening in Eretz Yisrael. Obviously, everything that's happening with the war, it seems so scary, and we want Hashem to cut us off from it. But the unity that it's had and formed within the Jewish people is unbelievable. And now that we've reached that connection to Jewish people from all around the world, from Eretz Yisrael, we ask Hashem, now we're done. Karti, cut us off from our enemies. What I love about Chassidus is that it always puts such a positive spin on everything. And although galus might be scary and our enemies might look like really frightening, the truth is that once we recognize that we're here for a reason and we've always overcome every single enemy, the more we've overcome those enemies, the stronger we've become. And it's not something we haven't been anywhere before. But as long as we recognize that there's goodness here along the journey and then we draw out the good, that's it, it's over. This recipe calls for a lot of lemon. We have 1 lemon peeled, 2 lemons zested, and now we're gonna get about a half a cup of lemon juice here, squeezed from fresh lemon. Some of this lemon is gonna go into the actual stew, and some of it is gonna go into the green sauce. So now that we have our lemon juice prepared, we're gonna go and get the fire started. Okay, so now we're going to place 1/3 cup of olive oil into our pot, and we're gonna place the sliced leeks, and first off with celery in here, and then we're gonna cover it. And a cool technique that I've learned is that when you keep it covered, it actually helps the cooking process, plus it helps it wet a little bit. We're gonna sprinkle about a teaspoon of salt and a half a teaspoon black pepper. And while this is cooking and reducing and getting nice and delicious, we are going to prepare our magic green sauce. I love this sauce because you can put it on anything. I throw it on top of this stew, I put it on top of my salmon, I use it for grilled chicken. So we start off with 4 cups of spinach leaves. Place them right over here. A trick, by the way, that I've recently learned to keeping these sauces nice and green is putting in some ice cubes. It just helps the color stay nice and green, and it actually does stay for a while in the fridge. Okay, so we have 4 cups of spinach, and then we have 2 cups of herbs. I prefer parsley, cilantro, that's always what I have in my house, but if you have oregano, mint, basil, go for it, as long as it's 2 cups of herbs. And then we're also gonna put in 2 garlic cloves, 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, about a 1/4 cup of olive oil, and then we're just gonna place all of these herbs in here. So we spoke about the meaning of galus and understanding that galus is on purpose. Now we can understand a little bit more about geula. Now that we've been cut off from our enemies, we've drawn out the good from whatever that enemy was, and recognizing that Hashem was there in that enemy also. We've drawn that out. We asked Hashem to cut us off, and now we can start thinking about geula. Geula, though, sometimes scares people. People think, you know, the coming of days, Mashiach is coming, Armageddon, the world is just gonna blow up and start over. But what we learn in Chassidus with that positive spin is that Mashiach, when we daven for it, when we daven for Geula, we want it to come Barachamim. Geula Barachamim is where there's no scary enemies and there's no big war of end of times. Geula Barachamim is just waking up the next minute where everything is just working and it's right and it's smooth and it's easy. It's living like the best day that you've ever lived before. I try to tap into those moments that are very good and recognize that those are little Geula moments, those Geula moments, and the more Geula moments that we have, the more that we build, that's when we enter into the era of Mashiach. So let's make some magic green sauce. And this is where we're davening for Geula Barachamim. So now we'll transfer this into a dish. This can stay in your fridge for up to a week. Super delicious, nice and green. Okay, let's go check on our stew. So now we're gonna check on our leeks and celery. It looks like they really sweated. And now we're gonna start to add the spices. So we have the dried dill, the ground coriander, the dried mint, a half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes, 2 teaspoons of salt, and some lemon peel. I'm gonna give that a nice little stir. Then we are going to add the rest of the lemon juice that we juiced, the 2 cans of chickpeas, and a half a cup of rice. In this recipe, we want it still to remain like that stew consistency, so we do a half a cup of rice with 4 cups of liquid. So now we're gonna add 4 cups of vegetable broth. If you like to use chicken broth and you wanna make it for a night that you're serving meat, that's okay. Sometimes I do this dairy and serve it with levna. So for this time, we're just keeping it pariv. This will actually cook down in about 15 minutes. I'm just gonna keep it covered here on a medium heat. As we approach Rosh Hashanah, which is a day of judgment, Yom HaDin, sometimes it comes with a little bit of scariness. Sometimes we're thinking oh my goodness, was I a good girl? Was I a good boy? Did I make Hashem proud this year? And then we often scurry to do as many good deeds and give charity and be nice to people. But the thing is that it sometimes feels a little inauthentic because you're I'm just rushing towards the end of the year just to get on that good list. The Baal Tanya, though, teaches us in a very, very deep way that this concept of emes, of truth, can be achieved even while we're faking it. Even while we're pretending that maybe I'm not always perfect, but when you have that moment where you experience personal growth and you did a good job and you feel good, that's your own relative emes. As long as we continue to have those personal moments of our own emes, we then can achieve the true emes where we really are actually the person that we want to be. So instead of saying fake it till you make it, I try to think of this line that a friend taught me, that be the person that you want to be. Put this image of yourself of this is who I want to be. I don't need to achieve somebody else's greatness, only my own greatness, with my skill set, with my family, with my personality, all that stuff. As long as I'm on my own personal journey, that shows Hashem that we're really in it for the real thing. So here we go, and we have the dairy version of it. I like to just put some spinach leaves over here for garnish, a little extra olive oil, levna, and a sprinkle of crushed red pepper flakes.